Hello, squad. Good morning. I need to start out by cleaning that screen. That was a little murky and I didn't realize. Good morning. Welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. I am Dr. Lindsay Huey. I will be your host today on Clinical Tuesday, my favorite day of the week. I am lead faculty for extremity management along with Dr. Mark Gallant and Dr. Eric Chaconis. And today I will be speaking with you about peace and love. And it's all our bodies ever asked for. So, what I'm really going to unpack is how we use the acronym peace and love to manage soft tissue injuries. And then also how by smoking our own dope as clinicians, the most recent research to manage soft tissue injuries, how we can really help our patients get better faster in that way. So before I dive into our topic, I'd love to share a little bit what's coming up in 2022 for Mark and I. So I have lots of courses coming up myself, and so does Mark. What's on the docket most recent is Florida is coming up, Bradenton, Florida, April 23 and 24. I would love to see you. There are just a few spots left there. So that course is a capped course. So if you can make it and want to see the beautiful beach with Dr. Melissa Reed and I, we would love to have you. And then Mark is really taking the lead with a lot of our open courses in the spring. He has one May 14th and 15th in Wisconsin, and then in Oklahoma, June 24th and 25th, and then July 16th and 17th, he'll be in Maryland. And then I just added on the books a little further out in the summer, August 6th in Arizona. So I would love it if you could join me there. And then Mark will be in Louisiana, August 20th, 21st. September 24th and 25th, he'll be in New York. So you see us kind of moving East Coast to West Coast. So there's a host of courses open to you all that you can dive in. And then I want to highlight one of our last fall courses, which is October 29th and 30th. We will be in Montana, Bozeman, Montana, and we'll be with Jason and his crew. And Mark and I will both be doing that course. So it should be a riot because it is Halloween weekend. And Jason London has requested that we wear costumes. So if you want to dive into a fun course where Mark and I are doing a course together, that will be the only one that we do. It's once a year that we get together, and that's that weekend. So if you're on the fence, that's one I'd recommend to you all. But be on the lookout for more courses being listed. And we do have intermittently a bunch of private courses, almost booked up though for 2022. All right, enough of that. You know, I love our courses and I'm passionate about it, but I'm also really passionate about the topic today because it really hit close to home, which I'll unpack in a bit. But peace and love, let you know what that acronym stands for. So this actually comes out of the British Journal of Sports Medicine, and it's a couple years old at this point. So in 2020, Blaise Du Bois and Jean-Francois Esculaire came out with this idea of peace and love when we're managing soft tissue injuries. And so P, that first letter in peace and love, stands for protection. So after the first few days after an injury, you want to take a break from aggravating activities and movements that cause pain. So as I unpack, by the way, this peace and love, I want you to be thinking about the traditional acronyms we would use when managing injuries, right? It was RICE, and then it was PRICE, and then there's been other ones along the way. But peace and love really embodies, I think, ICE's message, that fitness forward approach best, and is how we guide in extremity management our clinicians to manage soft tissue injury. So again, P is protection. Protect that area of injury for a time. E, we're going to still elevate the limb, right? Higher than the heart as often as possible to manage edema. A, we're going to avoid anti-inflammatories and icing, as these are now linked to reducing the body's own ability to do tissue healing. And so that's a big different one than the past, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So A is avoid anti-inflammatories. Then C, compression. So use some kind of compression and support. So whether that's elastic bandaging or taping to help with that swelling, and then just support of whatever extremity is involved or area of the body. E, so that final letter in peace, is education. So getting some education to that human that's injured to avoid unnecessary passive treatments or over medicalization of the injury, because your body really knows best if you allow it to keep moving and decrease that fear on board related to the injury. So, and now we're going to move on to love. So that completes peace, PEACE. And then love. So L is we want to load that area of injury, and we want um, allow pain to be an informational guide, but know and explain to others that gradual load is really what's going to help these tissues heal. We're not going for a 1 rep max that week of injury, but appreciate that gradual load of body weight and even just ADLs is a really good thing. O, in love. Optimism and confidence for a positive recovery. This is a necessary mindset for a speedy recovery. Anytime you're injured, if you kind of go down that woe is me path, you're going to tend to heal a lot slower. So, in general, giving humans a positive outlook and expectation on the injury is necessary. V, in the love, vascularization to those tissues is so necessary. And you're going to do that by instituting some pain free cardio to get that blood flow to repairing tissues, right? That big pump in our body is what's really going to help perfuse tissues and help them heal. And if it's a really highly irritable limb, do it away from the area, right? If it's a twisted ankle, then do the arm bike really hard. But if tolerated, don't wimp out on the assault bike if you can do it, if that ankle can tolerate the range, right? Find something that perfuses the tissue. And then finally, E, exercise. Exercise needs to be on board, not just that cardio, but doing movements that actually encompass a mix of mobility, strength, and proprioception to promote an active, all-inclusive approach to recovery. So if we're going to treat soft tissue injuries well, we're going to do it in this way. And I will say the authors do a good job first saying, the peace part is right after injury. That's immediately after injury where you don't want to do any harm and you really want to allow peace to guide your approach. But then, as it's been a few days since it's passed, soft tissue injuries really need that love part. So, kind of allow that to be a guide. And I'll say they have a great infographic that marks out the peace and love that I keep up in my clinic. I keep it on our fridge. And right when patients walk in the door, they can see this. And hopefully, it opens up some conversation. So, the second part, besides reviewing what does the most recent evidence say about how we manage soft tissue injuries, is I had this really unique opportunity to what our COO, Alan Fredendale, says, to smoke your own dope. I recently sustained an acute lateral ankle sprain, and I really had this opportunity to use each part of peace and love in a way that I hadn't in the past to manage a soft tissue injury. And so I kind of want to share that story with you all and just the power of and the idea of smoking your own dope. By the way, is everyone on Instagram able to hear me still? Can someone just raise their hand? Because of course, some random calls coming through while I'm doing this, and sometimes that mutes. So anyone that's actively listening, would you mind just giving me a wave? Dustin, are we good? Or a thumbs up, as much as I love that. Okay, I see waves. I'm going to hope that you can still hear me. So let's backtrack a little bit. I recently did a course in Nebraska, and I was with Lauren from Onward Denver and Megan Daly, and to and from our course. So we traveled from Denver together and commuted to North Platte, Nebraska, and this rest stop kept catching my eye. Sinclair's, for those of you from that area, there's this big green dinosaur, right, that catches your eye on the road. There's not much there, pretty flat drive. And, I kept kind of joking, I want a picture on this dinosaur. I want to go see it up close, right? So, of course, by the end of that trip on our commute back, we did make that stop at Sinclair's. And we thought it was a good idea to get a picture on that, meaning I thought it was a good idea to get a picture on that. And I'm talking to the girls and I'm dismounting from this dinosaur, this huge green dinosaur. And I just slide off the side. And then all 157 pounds um, comes down on my left limb. And I get that lateral ankle sprain. Obviously, I was kind of smart enough to know to fall to the ground, fall to the rocks so that um, that I wouldn't put all that weight and further cause some damage. But we all are laughing, but I start to get up, and you have that sick, dizzy feeling, and I'm like, "Ooh, this might be bad," right? And I had this opportunity for those that were just at my course to apply the Ottawa ankle rules that I had just taught about 3 hours earlier, and I was good there, right? In regards to I could ambulate, even though it hurt, and then the tender areas to palpation, I was pretty clear on that, but it swelled up pretty good. And so the reason I'm sharing this mechanism of injury is that we also had this ride for 3.5 hours and back to Denver. And my goal the next day was to do a hike, right? To do a hike at Royal Arch. And so I had this opportunity and a lot of time to kind of mull over, oh man, I'm going to miss this. I could possibly miss this hike. Is this fractured? Because that's still in the back of your mind, right? And there was this temptation of putting my mindset to overpathologize, right? That this injury, I haven't had an injury in a really long time, a lateral ankle sprain since high school or college. But I kind of found myself pausing and thinking, what would I tell my patients to do, right? What would I have them do? And so that evening, we get to Megan's cousin, Davis, and I do the things, right? We compress and I elevate for the night. And I mean, it started progressively feeling pretty bad. But in my mind, I'm saying, I'm going to do this hike, kind of no matter what, right? And I'm thinking, this really hurts. I really want to do it. I want to, like in my mind, I want to take some pain medication. But again, reconsulted this peace and love and thinking, you know what? I can protect it. I can tape it up really good. I'm elevating it, getting a decent night's rest, but I'm going to avoid those anti-inflammatories as much as it would probably take the edge off and make that hike the next day a little bit more pleasant. I thought, you know what? I'm going to smoke my own dope and not do that. Right. So I didn't take pain meds that first night of injury. So it would have been last Sunday. Got some rest, woke up. It was pretty hard to walk. A little bit of concerns on board. But after I taped it up and I started moving, it started to feel a little better, right? And so that E piece, I had that education piece, I had to kind of start self talking, right? That my body knows best. And that ultimately, if this does get worse and my walking progressively worsens, then I'll listen to my body and I know I need to take it easy. But I also know the importance of movement, right? That movement, that pumping action of keeping your body moving and weight bearing. And so that next morning, so it brings us to Monday, all taped up, dropped Megan off at the airport, and I set out for this hike. And I'll tell you, in the beginning, I have a video if you want it. I started out with this step 2 pattern, and I thought, you know what? Let's just see how it goes. I'll do my best and I'll keep moving, right? So I've protected it. I elevated it earlier. I avoided anti-inflammatories. The tape provided quite a bit of compression, and I had a high sock on, which would help with that too. And here's where I kind of pushed the limits a bit, right? Like I was thinking about what I have told my patient to go for a 3-mile hike up, you know, a decent amount of elevation. And I'll tell you that I pushed the margins here, right? I pushed the margins in my experience a bit because that hike was really important to me. And so, even though it was a little early in the process, I applied that love principle a little earlier, right? So I decided to load with my body weight. I was going to make that hike and do the best that I could. And I also had this optimism on board that this hike's important to me. I'm in Delaware. I don't often get to be in Denver, Colorado, and I have this opportunity to do something different and see a new beautiful sight. So there was this mindset of, I really want to go after this, and I think I can. And I also know that moving helps with that V part, right? Vascularization. And then in general, negotiating all those rocks, right? There's going to be a little exercise on board that challenges the mobility of the ankle, the strength, and the proprioception. And I'll tell you, while that was a very, very slow hike, by the end, that step two gait pattern transitioned to a step through gait pattern. I have a video of that as well because I was literally amazed um, at my own kind of resolution of the gate, because I knew I was pushing it. I knew that I might be asking for getting stuck up on that on that trail hike because it was like a 3 miler there and back. But what I saw was progression each day to things that are important to me. And so this peace and love really gives us this opportunity, especially if we enact it ourselves, for not only faster healing. So it's been a week and 2 days, and I'm back to my CrossFit workouts. I'm walking the kids to and from school, which I wasn't originally doing. So about a quarter mile. I'm doing that now. I've returned to my sport that's important to me. And yes, it did push the margin. But I really believe that when we push the margin of the human experience, there's always going to be some risk on board, right? Anything meaningful often has a little bit of risk. And yes, there was a risk on that mountain climb to possibly make it worse and get stuck there. But what I found on the other side was a lot of progress and a faster return to what's important to me. And there's this other intangible part of, you know, deliberately practicing the evidence, right? We usually think of deliberate practice as a skill you're working on. But, as clinicians, it's our job to test out the research and practice deliberately, right? If we're not being about it ourselves, why would our patients be, right? I really wanted to take Advil and put this in a bucket of ice because in volleyball, at college volleyball, that's what we do to make it better. But that goes against what I'm preaching to other people. And so I had this opportunity again to smoke my own dope and see it progress this ankle sprain faster. And it was at least a grade 2 ankle sprain with some peroneal tearing. And it's doing quite well with minimal bruising now. I challenge us all in practice to take the opportunities to smoke our own dope, to deliberately practice research, and to shift that narrative on soft tissue care, right? That we don't need anti-inflammatories and we don't need a whole lot of ice and passive rest. We need movement. And if we aren't being about it, how can we demand our patients to be about it? So let's spread the good news of peace and love by modeling it. Peace and love, it's all our bodies ever asked for. Happy Tuesday.